So after the turning point, that was Antietam, as well as the subsequent Emancipation Proclamation, it's clear that there's no end in sight. All right, there's no immediate solution to the brutality in the fight. Now, after dismissing McClellan, Lincoln offered command of the Army of the Potomac to Ambrose Burnside, whose famous facial hair would come to be known as sideburns. On 2 previous occasions, Burnside had been offered the same command and had refused Lincoln. This time around, he was essentially forced to accept, even though he personally declared himself to be unfit for the position. Now, Lincoln provided Burnside with the same orders he had given to McClellan. To put it simply, destroy Lee's army in Virginia. Burnside crossed into Virginia with about 115,000 men, while Lee's top officers, that would be Longstreet and Jackson, met him with about 73,000. Lee gave up the city of Fredericksburg very quickly. So you can see in the image, we got Fredericksburg in the background, and the Confederates were content to hold the high ground surrounding the city. And Burnside insisted on a full frontal assault because his orders were to attack the Confederates. 12 unsuccessful assaults resulted in over 12,500 Union casualties, compared to over 5,000 for the Confederates. Now, interestingly enough, the bravery that the Union soldiers showed really stood as a symbol for them. Even the Confederates were impressed with the tenacity of their foes. Burnside was mercifully relieved of command. The following May, Lincoln's latest general, Joseph Hooker, because again, he's continuing to filter through these generals, Hooker forced a confrontation with Lee just west of Fredericksburg near Chancellorsville. The Union outnumbered the Confederates 2-1, but Lee outmaneuvered Hooker with the help of Stonewall Jackson and eventually won the day. Now, it was Lee's most brilliant victory, but it was tempered by the loss of Stonewall Jackson. In the twilight hours, a Confederate patrol mistook Jackson for a Union soldier and shot him. The bullet pierced his left arm. That left arm was amputated, and he later died of infection from the surgery. Lee claimed that Jackson has lost his left arm and I have lost my right. So even though Lee seems to be invincible, he has lost one of his best commanders moving forward. Now, due to Lee's victory at Chancellorsville, he judged that it was the best time for another invasion of the North, and the first being fall of 1862, culminating in the Battle of Antietam. For his end, President Jefferson Davis thought that part of his army should go to defend Vicksburg, but Lee's confidence and his personal reputation were quite high after Chancellorsville, so Davis approved the request. As Lee began to make his way north, disagreements between President Lincoln and General Joseph Hooker led to Hooker's resignation. Lincoln appointed George Meade in his place, and Meade actively sought to engage Lee. And he knew that Lee was actually in Pennsylvania, and he had gone through Maryland. When you look at the map here, first we have Fredericksburg, then Chancellorsville. Instead of going directly to Washington, Lee wanted to circle round, go through Maryland, get to Pennsylvania, and come in through the seemingly unguarded backside. The two sides squared off in the sleepy little hamlet of Gettysburg. Now, the fighting takes place from July 1st through the 3rd, and it goes back and forth. On the 3rd day, the infamous Pickett's Charge took place over a wide open field, with rebels simply walking towards a fortified Union position. They were mowed down. It wasn't a contest. News of the victory was tempered by the reality that Meade, if you'll excuse the spelling error, news that Meade had allowed Lee to escape with his army back into Virginia. Now, the war itself would continue, but Lee would never again invade the North. So from here on out, it's a solely defensive struggle. And you can see that the numbers bear out that it was much worse for the Confederates. they're going to have to retreat and draw back following the second turning point, Gettysburg. Now, at the same time, out west, Ulysses S. Grant was continuing his push down the Mississippi River to complete the Anaconda Plan, or at least complete part of the Anaconda Plan. The final holdout was the city of Vicksburg, Mississippi. Grant surrounded the city and began to lay siege to it in mid-May of 1863. Union artillery continually shelled the city to the point where residents left their homes and burrowed into the hillside for protection. You can see that in the photograph here, that residents were kind of like moles in this case. The food supplies ran dangerously low, and the Confederates were not able to break the siege due to lack of supplies. The Confederate commander was actually a former colleague of Grant's from the Mexican-American War and formally surrendered the city on Independence Day, July 4th, 1863. And with that, the Confederacy itself was cut in two. Now, his success ensured that Grant was definitely on everyone's radar and would be given a larger command. And Lincoln wanted him to replace Meade in the East. Grant resisted because he knew the West and he understood that army much better. So Lincoln did agree for now to let him remain. The Western Army is reorganized, with Grant at the lead, and Ambrose Burnside and William Tecumseh Sherman as his subordinates. So even though capturing Richmond was still a wartime objective, it was critical to cut off Lee from supplies that might reach him via these western states. So news of Gettysburg, news of Vicksburg reached the White House at about, the same time. So it's certainly a happy Independence Day for the Union cause.